Is there any disease that somebody might be hearing this, maybe it's their mother or their sister, that the doctor said there's no cure, not that they're necessarily, on a deathbed, but some sort of disease that you can only maintain it with a drug. Do you believe it can be reversed? Hello and welcome to Make Things Happen podcast with Diana Pagano. Today, I'm so excited to announce who I'm with. Dr. Fab is America's #1 healthy living expert, and he is a world-renowned chiropractor. And you might have seen him on Dr. Phil's show, and we're going to get into a lot of great stuff that he has accomplished, and I'm so inspired by his work. He is an international best-selling author and speaker. And as you know, he's been in some prominent news media channels. He's been, like I said, Dr. Phil. He's been on CNN, Fox News, and Univision and Telemundo. And he's here to tell us all about his expertise. If you haven't heard about him, you should. And Dr. Fab, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Well, Diana, I'm so excited to be with you. And I know a lot of great value will come from this conversation. So I'm all yours.
I have one of your books here, which we're going to get into some stuff, The Power of Self-Healing. So when I got this book, I obviously had met you in New York, but I heard so much about you and I started to look into your work and I'm like, oh my gosh, the healing powers, there's just such value in what you're doing. And I'd like you to tell us more. Like, how would you say that you started your journey in this healthy living?
Well, I make it brief, but if you can tell the sexy accent, I'm from Colombia, South America.
Yes.
And I was born there. And at 13 years old, my parents decided to move to the United States. My dad was going through some alcoholism issues, and my mom felt like if we moved here, he had a better chance, which he did. And he went through a 6-month program and never drank the rest of his life, which was a big blessing. So my 4 brothers and I came here and, we had to learn the language, learn their culture. And then at 16 years old, I was involved in a robbery. I came close to dying. Robbers came in and they were hitting me with the back of their guns. And I thought I would never make it.
Oh my goodness.
And after that experience, I had a dream that I was going to be a doctor. It just came to me. I've often read that people that come close to dying, many times their future, their destiny reveals itself to them because there's no time to lose. I wake up every day not expecting to wake up tomorrow. I mean, I go to sleep every day not expecting to wake up. I wake up every day understanding that all I have is today. And that has been one of my foundational secrets towards building success is because you live in the present. Eckhart Tolle wrote a beautiful book called The Power of Now. And Wayne Dyer used to speak a lot about the present moment.
Yes, love Wayne Dyer.
So I went to a pre-med school at the University of Dallas. It was a very prestigious pre-med program. And then instead of going to medical school, which I had already been in the process of, I was involved in a car accident and the orthopedic surgeon at the hospital sent me to a doctor of chiropractic. I've never heard the words chiropractic before, so I thought it would be a specialty in medicine. But little was to find out that it was really the leading holistic natural health profession in the United States. And it was primarily addressing a healthy nervous system that controls and regulates all the other systems. And also focusing on the root cause of my problem rather than trying to manage my symptoms through medications, right? That's the main component that chiropractic really stands out. So I interviewed 62 chiropractors after having tremendous outcomes. And I decided not to go to medical school because I wanted to be in the space of prevention. I wanted to encourage patients to take care of their health. I wanted to deal with natural health sciences. And in that space, I became a chiropractor. Then later I learned acupuncture, nutrition, energy medicine. Now it's biohacking with the latest technologies. And for me, when I wrote this book, my first book was Chicken Soup for the Chiropractic Soul. So at that time, Chicken Soup was the largest book series in the world, over 500 million books sold. And there were only 160 titles. And I was chosen to write the chiropractic book, which became an instant bestseller. We sold about 400,000 in the first 2 years, never taking it to a bookstore, never selling it online.
Wow, amazing.
Actually selling it through chiropractic offices. And then when I wrote this book, my dad had passed away and He had a complication of a surgery, but my dad also didn't have the best health habits.
Mm.
And I wanted to really put into this book 25 years of observation, researching, and I realized that the power of the body to heal is always with us. You see, we're
Mhm.
usually looking outside of ourselves on what can make us heal rather than starting with oneself. We have cells, organs, and systems that are already designed to help us pretty much deal with any issue that we're dealing with. The problem many times is that those systems are broken, they're not working well, and we're sabotaging our bodies by our environment, what we eat, lack of exercise, lack of
Right.
sleep, all of the things that we hear about in chronic disease right now. So I discovered something, Diana, that really surprised me. I interviewed 50 people that were told that they would not survive their condition. They were
Wow.
terminally ill. And I
Okay.
asked them, how did you heal yourself? Now, many of them were my patients, but then others were other people's patients. And I discovered that there were three dimensions to self-healing. And this is why the book became an international bestseller, number
Right.
one in 8 countries. 12 countries, translated in 8 languages. And what we discovered was that our bodies are made of a physical dimension,
Mm.
an emotional dimension, and a spiritual dimension. And in order to really self-heal, you must address all three in order to give you the greatest potential to heal yourself from any condition out there. And also, when it comes to looking at a root cause, we realized that some of the physical ailments that people were going through was not being caused of because of a physical behavior or something. It was actually an emotional behavior that caused the physical problem. We all know that if we get a lot of stress in our bodies, that can
Right.
make us feel queasy and lack of sleep and turn
That manifests.
our stomach down. And then I realized that sometimes your spiritual disconnection,
Mhm.
right? Robert Kennedy Jr. recently said that Americans struggling not only with a chronic disease or a healthcare issue, but a spiritual crisis that we need to
Mm.
address because the spiritual crisis is impacting our physical health. And that's what I wrote about in my book. And I think people really resonated with that. And I was really
Absolutely.
happy
That's
because
amazing.
I want
And
to
that's
empower people.
yes, and that shines through, Dr. Fab. I can see that right through and all the things that I've been following you on. And so when you say chicken soup for the chiropractic, so that's the one that you were just mentioning right now.
Well, that was the first book
That's your first book.
where what I did is I went out there and I asked doctors to ask their patients to submit a story based on the criteria of chicken soup of
Mhm.
how chiropractic helped them. And we had over 6,000 stories in 1 month. I
Wow.
couldn't believe it.
Right.
So my job was to evaluate every story
Hmm.
and pick the top ones, send it to the chicken soup staff, which was 25 people that evaluated every story. And you had a checklist of about 20 points. And
Okay.
if you didn't meet every point, it will not get in the book. So about 100
Oh, wow.
stories made it to the book of 6,000.
Amazing.
And what it did is that it showed people that chiropractic is far more than just back pain and neck pain and headaches, which we know as chiropractors. But the average consumer, based on recent data, still views the chiropractic as if my back hurts, I'll go see a chiropractor instead of really
Right.
for prevention and well being, which can support pretty much every system in the body. And then my last book was The Power of Self Healing, which is
Yes.
the one that talked about the three dimensions of healing.
I love that so much. And I just want people listening in right now or so that can understand the massive impact that you're making in the world. And I wrote this down. So I'm obviously some of them I just knew from reading about you, but just want to share what industry leaders, and there's many of them out there, Dr. Fab, that you've collaborated with, that you've connected with, and did some massive impact in the world, really, in other languages, other countries. But I just want to comment on a few. So Dr. Phil says that Dr. Fab is the epitome of perseverance and optimism. Les Brown, who we all know is a world-leading, motivational speaker, and says that you're serious about bringing out your greatness and taking you on your business to the next level. Jack Canfield, as we all know who that, who that is, best-selling author as well, said that Dr. Fab is a close friend and one of his greatest mentors in the field of health and human performance. I can go on and on. John Gray, who I'm a big fan of as well, says that what you teach there's such a vital component and importance of not just your physical, emotional, but also spiritual balance. And you mentioned that in your book as well. And I think it's so fascinating because we live in a world, Dr. Fab, as you know, where we're so governed by, the news and what what traditional medicine has done, and the doctor told me this, the doctor told me that, and my journey, even with my health issues, I've had Dr. Fab, and I'm always a contrarian. Like, there has to be a better way. I'm like a huge optimistic person to a fault sometimes, where I'm like, there can be a way, and so I love, and it spoke to me so much about self-healing and all the things that you talk about. And sometimes people think like, oh, I'm going to the doctor, I'm going to get on this medication, and I'm not knocking medication that's necessary. I'm not a doctor, and I won't comment on that, but I do believe that the value that you talk about in your books and everything I've seen about your work is such, and you mentioned the connection between mind, body, and spirit, and even spiritually. What would you say to people listening right now and saying, is this really just positive thinking or being prayerful? My mom's been so religious and she has all these illnesses. Talk to me about the person that is a little contrarian on the other side of saying, this doesn't work. Is it really just healing ourselves emotionally, or should we be? I'm not here to talk bad about medicine, MDs and all that. There are great ones out there. But tell me what you would say to somebody listening in that thinks that this is just a myth, that our bodies can heal itself.
In my background, I've been a doctor of chiropractic for 35 years this year. That I graduated 35 years ago. I also was president of Parker University for 13 and a half years. So I went from healthcare to education. And Parker at that time had one chiropractic program, and now we have over 36 programs in healthcare. So it's a very lucrative university that really is breaking records right and left. And I'm still president emeritus of that school. And then, of course, I've been in the media for the last, especially 12 years, where I was the health expert for Dr. Phil, the doctors, Fox News, and many others. I can tell you that the biggest challenge, and I think where we can begin this process, is to understand the history of how traditional medicine evolved. And traditional medicine evolved from a perspective that the powers behind medicine were the people that created the pharmaceutical companies. So they would actually go to the medical schools and say, hey, we'll fund your school, we'll fund your research, but you have to keep as the number one treatment pharmaceuticals. And this has been happening. You can look it up. I mean, it's just an evolution.
Wow.
So the challenge is that we got to the point that we stay limited to that one approach. So then, on the other hand, you have what we call natural health sciences, like acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathy, and energy medicine, and many others that have been taking care of people for, acupuncture has been around for over 5,000 years, longer than traditional medicine, right? And they have helped people, millions of people, throughout the process in a natural way. If you go into homeopathy, it's been around forever. If you go into holistic medicine like naturopathy, where you have ingredients and teas and things that can actually help somebody recover from an illness. So the evolution is the point that right now, that one-sided option of treatment has led us in the United States to become the sickest country in the world. I think we rank in the 80s out of all the countries in the world. And we spend more money on healthcare than anyone out there. Now, chronic disease, which is your heart disease, cancers, arthritis, obesity, chronic pain, all of these conditions are 90% of the cost of healthcare in the United States. So that's where you see the administration now. And it's not Republican or Democratic. This is
No.
really the United States of America is a very sick nation.
Right.
And we have to do something about it because being sick has led for the last 10 years as the number one reason why somebody declares a personal bankruptcy. You would think that a personal bankruptcy is that somebody made bad financial decisions. No,
Right.
it was a sickness that hit that family, and now they can't afford it because the hospital bill was $300,000 and they only had $20,000 in a savings account. That's the reality of America. So we have to pay attention. And my message in this process is that, the administration is going to make some changes in trying to become more efficient and effective in that process. And you can see that over 72% of Americans are very excited about making America healthy again. And we're very excited to have somebody like Bobby Kennedy that is very passionate about this process and very well prepared for this role based on all of the years that he has been in this space. But at the end of the day, no one can make you healthy but yourself. So my message to people is, it's a personal choice. The choice is yours. And actually, I'm writing a book that will be out next month where I'm teaching people how to reverse and eliminate and end chronic disease by simply making a better choice every single day. And I'm giving you a lot of options how to substitute a bad choice with a good choice.
I love that. And you mentioned, make America healthy again. And there's such with administration, the FDA, getting rid of Red 40. My kids and my family, we are very conscious of what we eat. And we have this Yuka app that tells you if it's excellent, good. And even then, you want to do more research. It's not going to give you everything. But it is about what you put in your body. And the decision really stems from you as an individual. I mean, there's so many people out there that are, I say vulnerable, and they're not aware. Knowledge is so power, but it's only when you apply it and you say, okay, regardless of what the FDA, the administration does, which I think is phenomenal, what's happening with, make America healthy again. Finally, somebody's doing something to create some change. I did see that you attended the event with one of their events, at least. So I love that you just mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about that as well, and how important it is what you put in your body. So is there a differentiator in emotional pain, and which is stress, right? Like you mentioned, and what you put in your body? Do you have statistics or anything that you would like to mention to somebody listening right now? How much is it what I eat? I eat so healthy, but I'm stressing every day, or I don't stress that much. And I have not the best diet, but I'm genuinely just a happy person. So what is your take on that and the balance between what you put in your body and what you put in your heart, which is the emotional?
It's a great question because it's a balance. One of the things that we notice is that, for instance, over 60% of the foods that we eat are processed foods that have no nutritional value. So we're eating for the sake of feeling full. We're not eating for the sake of living well. And that has to change, right? We need to substitute, like when you go to a grocery store, you notice that you have a section with fruit and vegetables, and usually it's the smallest section in that supermarket, right? And especially if you go to a major superstore like Walmart or Costco and all of those, you notice that those areas are very small. Now, 90% of the foods in that store are really processed foods. That means that they are generated to last on the shelf, but by doing so, you take a lot of it, nutritional value out of it. That's why it's important to go shopping in farmers markets. Every city has them, right? You get directly from the farmer. And if you're going to buy vegetables or fruits or anything organic, you're going to buy it directly from them. That's one of the easiest ways for you to start buying and switching, is to change where you shop. I'm driving a lot of traffic to these farmer markets because these are honest, hardworking people that are really trying to bring you the best of their best in order to make you healthy again. But what we notice also is that 90% of our diseases are actually foundationally due to stress. Now, stress is good for the body, but short-term stress, right? We have a mechanism in the body called fight or flight that is allowed you to recognize danger, and then your body automatically raises your blood pressure it pumps blood into your muscles so you can run and get away from the danger, right? That's the way typically we have lived.
Right.
The problem is this: our chronic stress have gotten to the point that it's not about a danger that comes and goes. It's about a danger that doesn't ever seem to go away. Some of those dangers are very simple. Financial distress. One of the top distressors in the world is that people are going through a lot of financial hardship and they are not finding solutions quickly enough to get them out of that stress. Number two, relationship stress. People are finding themselves in relationships that are toxic, abusive, non-productive, non-healthy, and they feel trapped for whatever reason. Then we also have the work-related stress. Recent studies show that over 70% of Americans hate, do not like, and don't even want to go to work. They're disengaged. So we're paying our employees to not actually be engaged, to be there. So imagine how that impacts productivity, how that impacts the economic of this country. So we got to get employees in the right seats, in the right positions. We have to make sure that we engage with them on an ongoing basis. We have to listen to what they're going through, because if they're having some of these other stressors outside of the workplace, but you don't give them an opportunity to address them, what happens is that they never tell anybody, but instead of working while they're at work, they're either worrying or they're working on trying to find a solution to their personal problem. So that's why it's important to address the emotional component. So I think it's a combination. One of the analogies that I gave is very simple. Our bodies are like a high-performing car. So think of our body as a Lamborghini. You just bought a Lamborghini. Now, when you go put some gas in the Lamborghini, you notice that your flap opens in the car and it's going to tell you to put the best possible gasoline. And then if you go to the gas station, you'll see that there's at least 3 options of the gasolines that you can put, sometimes 4. And you can have the cheaper one that is not so great, or the super unleaded that is the best one. So as a high-performing car, I'm never going to put cheap gasoline in this car, because the car will only give me what I put into it. Now, if I give it the cheap gas, guess what happens? It breaks down, and then the maintenance for a Lamborghini, just for a regular maintenance, is $5,000. It's ridiculous.
It is.
So you're like, I'm not going to do that. Now, imagine you look at yourself as a Lamborghini, your mouth opens up, and it's a flap. And the flap is very simple. It's going to say, eat less processed food, eat more organic fruit and vegetables, reduce your sugar by quite a bit. You know, keep the toxins out of your food, out of your environment. That's sleep more. This is really all the stuff we put into our mouth. We need to really pay attention that everything we put into our mouth should actually be for the sake of making our cells work better, rather than the opposite, which is making our cells get sicker to the point that obesity right now, over 30% of our children are considered obese. Over 30%. Now, obesity is 32 pounds above your normal weight.
Wow.
This is not going to be good.
No.
Obesity is the precursor of diabetes. It's the precursor of heart disease, right? So if our children don't get healthy, that's why we have so much emphasis in children's health today, because the mental health is over there. The anxiety, depression, suicide tendencies for children under 14 years old skyrocketed during the pandemic and continues to be high.
That's crazy.
We have to pay attention to their emotional state, but we also have to show them how to eat healthier at home and be able to give them an opportunity to hopefully not develop all these chronic diseases that they're in the process of developing or already been labeled as chronic diseases in their lives.
That's incredible. And think about our children, that's our future. That single-handedly is our future leaders.
Well, imagine if our healthcare system is broken and we're spending more money with having one of the worst healthcare systems. Imagine the next generation. The next generation is much sicker than this generation.
That's true.
So that means it's going to break us, right? Right now, we're spending over 20% of all of our gross product domestic money in healthcare. That needs to be at 5% or less.
You're right.
Individuals don't have enough money for health insurance, as you know. Most people are carrying very high deductibles. They're paying the minimum through their work. Many of them are going through without any health insurance. Some of them have this discounted insurances out there that have become a good viable option for some people. But the reality of it is we have a really a strong healthcare crisis that we need to pay attention to, and we need to all be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
We all need to do our best.
I love that. We need to be a part of the solution because it starts with all of us. And I love that you said that. And you also mentioned that, get rid of the toxic that we put in our mouth. And I think it's just educate yourself when you're going to eat that. Are you going to have a salad? It's all this prioritizing. What would you say to somebody who say, God, this is overwhelming. Like I need to watch everything I eat. Is there a cheat day where you 80-20 rule? 80% I have a good diet. The 20% I'm grabbing the ice cream and the bagel or the pasta with all the carbs.
What I typically do is that behavior that is sustainable must be balanced, right? Okay. We know that the reasons that diets don't work is because you feel forced. And once you reach your goal, what happens? You go back to your past behavior, sometimes even more with a vengeance. So not only do you gain the weight that you lost, you actually gain more weight than the one you lost when you finish your program. That's why diets don't work. I mean, we've seen that one diet from another. I believe that everything in moderation is the key. The 80-20 rule is Pareto. Pareto was a scientist in the early days in Italy that discovered that 20% of our behavior yields 80% of our successes, right? Okay. In business, in nutrition, in health, in everything. So my suggestion will be write down a list of every behavior that you do on a daily basis, and let's rank them. Good behavior, bad behavior. Like right now, most people will say to me, Fab, what's the best thing that I can do as soon as I wake up in the morning? As soon as you wake up in the morning, studies have shown, if you really want a beautiful secret, is to take some room temperature water, squeeze a lemon in it, you can add some minerals to it, and drink that first thing in the morning. That is one of the biggest hacks towards your health and anti-aging that you will ever find. The second one, which I practice for over 18 years now, is to exercise first thing in the morning. Why? Because exercise changes your physiology. Yes. It allows you to activate your brain, your muscles, your circulation, your breathing, all of that all at once. And you can do 30 minutes. You can do high interval exercise where you go real hard and run in place for like a minute and then rest a minute. Or you can try to go 2 minutes and rest a minute.
And what does that do to our bodies, Dr. Van?
It's just one of the best. This is the way that Olympic athletes actually train. It's called high interval training.
Interesting.
Okay. And what it does is that you force your body into a state of activity where you're rushing the blood, you're activating all the cells, and it's like a really big wake-up call. And then you rest. And then you do it again, whether it's cycling on your stationary bike, whether it's doing push-ups, whether it's doing sit-ups, whether it's doing jumping jacks. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate.
Okay, you can switch
whether
it up.
You're doing strength training with your weight, just 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then rest. For the same amount that you do, you rest the same amount.
So when you say rest, are you saying that you go like you're running quick for 1 minute and then you walk for the other minute, or just rest? Nothing.
Rest,
okay, that's the key.
Just breathe. Just breathe in through your through your nose, out through your mouth, deep. And that will help
breathe,
you rebalance.
And I just took a breath.
Yeah, and you do it again.
Okay.
The other one that research has shown to be very effective is called plunging. Now, when they did the blue zones, which is the people that live the longest around the world, they found that many of these people took an ice bath early in the morning when they woke up, and cold plunging has become now very popular. And the nice thing about it is that you can buy pretty much a cold plunge, a home cold plunge, very inexpensively now. I've been cold plunging since 1994.
Wow. I've been so tempted to do that. I just haven't.
It was popular, but it's wonderful. Now, if you have a pool and you live somewhere where the winter is and you don't have a cold plunge, go inside your cold pool.
Just go to your pool.
You know? and or you can actually put a bath that you can make it really cold. You can add ice, or they sell this portable unit that you can put the hose into your bathtub, and it will freeze your water, or it will make your water at 34 degrees, which is ideal. 34 to 37 degrees.
34 to 37. Okay.
And then just get in for a minute. It could be 2 minutes. I'm up to 10 minutes now,
Oh,
but
wow.
you can
Okay.
slowly, gradually
Ease
let
into
your
it.
body adapt, you know.
Got it.
Uh,
Oh, man.
the
So
other
you've
thing
been
that we
doing that for a while.
found, Diana, that is really important is when I interview these people about what helped them, what I
Mhm.
learned very quickly is that most people don't have a holistic provider in their list of providers. So let's say that you're diagnosed right now with heart disease,
Okay.
right? Potential stroke. So you go to a cardiologist, right? Your general doctor is going to send you to a cardiologist. The cardiologist is going to do an opinion and going to make a recommendation. It could be a pharmaceutical recommendation. It could be potentially a surgical recommendation.
Okay.
But then your second opinion, guess what you do? You go back to another cardiologist. Now they've been trained the same way, so you're going to get the same opinion pretty much.
Likely,
So what I
yes.
discovered is that all of these people found holistic natural providers that gave them a whole different opinion, right? All of a sudden, they got diagnosed with potential stroke, and then they went to a naturopath that gave them a complete diet, right, to strengthen their cardiovascular system, to reduce some of the foods that were causing the problem in the first place. And
Interesting.
then they went to somebody that gave them an exercise program that actually helped them be able to recover from potentially having a stroke. And then they went
Interesting.
to somebody that had a technology
Hmm.
today, like there's a technology called micro circulation,
Oh, I've heard of that.
uh,
Okay. Yes.
which is Avicen. And if you put your hand on it and it warms your body, but it distributes circulation throughout your whole body, and the blood gets into cells that typically do not get blood supply. So it's very healthy. So they got that. Or maybe
Hmm.
they went to a chiropractor and they showed that by adjusting the upper back, you can actually increase the nerve supply into your cardiovascular system, your heart, and all of that. So, like in chiropractic school, when we did some of the labs, we will take our pressure,
Okay.
and let's say I had a high blood pressure, and then I will get adjusted and get a blood pressure again. And in most cases, it will normalize my blood pressure. Now, it may not
Interesting.
keep it normalized for a long time, depending what
Right.
the root cause of the blood pressure was,
Mhm.
but it showed the impact that it could have in the body. So
Wow.
maybe a chiropractor could be another option. Or maybe you
Interesting.
went to an acupuncturist that showed you, hey, your heart meridian is not working very well. There's not enough energy flowing through here. Why don't we put some needles there and try to open it up for you? See, these are all the things that can help somebody restore their health without having to necessarily subscribe to having to do a potential harmful medication
Right.
and potential harmful uh, uh, surgery.
Oh,
Because the one
even
thing to
worse.
understand, like I worked in two hospitals during my pre-med. I
Okay.
can tell you that when it comes to the 5% urgent care, and it's less than 5%, 95% is chronic disease or conditions that are not related to emergency. So,
Mhm.
for instance, if somebody has had a heart attack, you don't want to take them to anybody but a hospital. Why? Because a
Sure.
hospital is already prepared with technology and technicians and providers that specialize in normalizing an urgent situation, right?
Right.
If you have something that, let's say you woke up out of your bed in extreme pain that you can't even get up, right?
Okay.
Maybe you go to an emergency and they can normalize you for that moment.
It's a band-aid
But
solution.
that's all it is. It's
Right.
an urgent solution. Now, lifestyle has been attributed to the majority, over 80% of the problems that we have is we need to change our lifestyle. We need to sleep more. We need to move our bodies more. It's the same advice we've always known, except
Right.
very few of us ever do it on a daily basis. We let life get by, and
True.
like, especially the ladies, right? I
So
love to
true.
speak to women because women, many times they feel they have to do it all. They
Mm.
have to be a
Love that.
businesswoman. They
Yes.
have to be a spouse. They have to be a mother, not
Hmm.
only to their children, but to their parents that are ailing, right?
So
And to their
true.
grandparents if they're alive. So all of a sudden you find out that most women end the day so exhausted that they never bother to take moment for themselves. So I always tell them, look, do like what I did. When you're a busy person, take the first hour to 2 hours every day, even if you got to get up at 3 in the morning when everybody
Right.
else is sleeping,
Yes.
and make it yours.
Make it your
Work
time.
on your physical body, work on your emotional body. The emotional component, I like emotions like gratitude, right? Write a gratitude journal. Be focused on your intention for the day.
Yes.
Do a meditation or a visualization that's very uplifting. But also your spiritual. If you're religious, read something that inspires you. If
Absolutely.
you want to listen to a podcast or listen to something that inspires you spiritually. So the first 2 hours of the day is my me time.
It's your you
This
time.
is what I've learned many years ago, that if I don't nurture myself,
Mm.
because I have a lot of demand on me. I've always
Mm.
had, you know, I cannot help people out there to the scale that I'm helping them if I don't take care of me. Many times
100%.
people say to me, Fab, you're going to be 60 this year. You look like
No,
you're 30. You
you
act
don't
like
look
you're
like you're
30.
60.
I'm,
You're gonna be
my
60.
body has regenerated completely. I do stem
Amazing.
cells for prevention, for the last 5 years.
Amazing. Okay.
I eat healthy. I take the first 2 hours of the day to work my physical, emotional, and spiritual body.
I love that.
Um,
I love that you say that.
and I love it
With
because I realize that if I don't take care of me, I'm
mm,
not going to be around to take care of anybody else. And
right,
that's really the lesson that I'm trying to bring to people today is, hey, let's start by making you a priority today. I know you told me you have to do 100 things. And I know
right.
you told me that everybody's depending on you. But what about you, right? If your inner self was talking to you right now, Diana, what would it tell you? Hey, you're taking care of me. Thank you so much for sleeping so
Right.
good. I feel so
Right.
rested today. Thank you for being patient and not beating yourself up for every mistake you think you're making.
Yes.
You know,
I
no,
love
he'd
that.
probably be yelling at you and said, "Man, I'm tired. I'm tired of the way you're treating me.
Right.
You're abusing me. You're taking me for granted." And that's really where we need to spend that time in our inner voice, trying
100%.
to get in touch with that.
You know, I feel like you're speaking my language in so many things. I used to be, and you mentioned as a female, especially las Latinas, and we watch our mom do everything, serve the husband, do this, we'll eat last, we'll shower last, everything's last for us. I changed that paradigm a long time ago, and I have 4 kids total, two in their 20s, and my two little guys now are 9 and 10, who still want mom and dad to put them to bed, and we take turns. And so they will suck the life out of me if I let them. And for those listening with kids, we attempt to do it all. But I do believe that when done right, you can have it all. And taking care of yourself, I love that you said that you take the first 2 hours to take care of yourself, not just from a physical perspective,
Right.
but also your mind and your spiritual net. I love that. I started to change something. I used to wake up at 5:30. And there's some moments that I'm like, I'm sleeping in today. My sleeping in is like 6:15. But then I started to do something different last year at 4:30, and I got myself this little mini trampoline in my home office, and I jump on that because I heard this is like really good with gravity or what have you.
Amazing.
I have a
Amazing.
personal trainer. I've been for probably 5 years. Some days I skip, but I do it at home. So I love the physical movement because, like you said, when you move your physiology, you're creating so much around you. And I love that, to have a routine that really works for you. And the gratitude, my gosh, I have a nightstand journal, and that's all I do is write what I'm grateful for and all that. So I love that you kind of piece a lot of different things together. You mentioned earlier, and you talk a lot about this, even in your book, about your lifestyle, changing your lifestyle, which is, I love that you are the full package, Dr. Fab. You have
Yeah.
so many experts out there that focus on physical health, and that's great. They have such
Yeah.
great content and good ideas and roadmaps for somebody that wants to get physically fit. And then you have somebody that focuses on gut health, especially in women, and all good stuff. And I love a lot of people that I've met that focuses on that. And then here I am talking to you, and I love that you are the full package. You talk about your emotional health. You talk about just the language you speak to yourself about, and prioritizing you, because it does matter. And when I started to prioritize myself, even negotiating with my two little boys, 9 and 10, even last night, I said, guys, mommy has to take care of me. And I was really tired because I had traveled to Arizona, and it was just the time change. And just like you said, life happens, but you got to prioritize you and the people around you. Some of them might be disappointed, but you can't serve anyone, not even yourself, if you don't take care of you. And I told my kids, they understand more than even when they were 5, I was telling them, guys, if I don't take care of mommy, I can't take care of you. And they understand, Dr. Fab, more than people think, that your kids will understand you more. Just be clear and articulate that. So my question about environment, you mentioned, what you put in your body, obviously.
Yeah.
What about the environment around you? What would you say?
Great
Because
question.
I
Great
talk a lot
question.
about who you surround yourself
Yeah.
around. Obviously, there's other factors, and when you talk
Yeah.
environmental, for sure. But I always talk about, and there's a saying in Spanish, or I don't know, translated, but tell me who your top 5 people are, and I'll tell you who you are. I
Yeah.
think I've even heard you say that. So it's really
Yeah.
important, because when you remove the toxic in your pantry, in your relation, it's not just what you put in your mouth, and what you do with your physical body, but it's also your surrounding with, some relationships, that you have. So talk to me about that.
Well, let's start with the external environment.
Yes.
So here are some of the hacks that I can give you that I discovered over the last 38 years. The first one is your pollution of the air in your house or your office. I have been using air purifiers since I discovered that sometimes our internal environments are far more toxic than our external environment. You notice that a lot of times people are dealing with mold issues and
Yes.
bacterial issues that they're not even aware of. So I've always
True.
found, filters and things that actually purify my air. And I've always had them in my offices, and I even travel with them. They're portable one now. When I go to a hotel, because I'm traveling every week,
Wow.
so I put them in the hotel to purify my room in the hotel, because you never know who's left there before. Now, recently,
So true.
Karen and I have been doing something really interesting, is that we bring our own sheets because we travel every week.
Oh, that's
So we
awesome.
know that most hotels have a king size
Yes,
bed.
I'm
So
not
we
there.
bring our clean sheets, right, that are grounded. Like we have this electronic anti-aging sheets that do grounding, far infrared, and antimicrobial silver. So when you sleep, it takes all your tension away of your body for
Oh my
8 hours or
goodness, that's
7 hours.
amazing.
So we carry that with us, and now we're traveling. So that's one. The other one is the water you drink. Right now, over 100 toxics are in our potable water. So I know a lot of you do not care about this, but you're drinking water that is making you sick. It's actually hurting your gut, to the point that your gut cannot function. So we've always had filtered water. Reverse osmosis
Yes.
is one of the ones that I've always promoted. And then now I went into hydrogen water 5 years ago, because hydrogen has more studies on helping your body heal than ever. So we have systems for the house, but like for instance, I don't go anywhere without a hydrogen water.
Okay.
Where this is, I just put purified
Wow.
water, press a button, and within a few minutes, it actually puts hydrogen inside the water. So I carry
Oh
this with
my
me
goodness.
everywhere I go.
What's that
Everywhere I
called?
go, it's a hydrogen water bottle. It's the
It's just a
company, I
water
think,
bottle.
is called Echo. They're the
Echo.
leading in
They're the
the
lead.
industry.
Interesting. Here I was
There's
thinking,
nobody better than this.
Dr. Fab, here I was, I'm such a water snob, but it doesn't compare to how you took it to a whole nother level. I'm like, I
Well,
drink alkaline water. You
no,
just took it
this
to
is
another
this is
level.
intense. And
Yes.
then you have, so
Love
from an
that.
external environment, you have your air. They have the water that you drink. Of course,
Okay.
you already talked about the food. Uh, Now let's talk about your internal environment. So the reason that I learned the 5 people in your life was from a seminar that I went to early on in my life. And I forget the gentleman's name, but he was Tony Robbins' mentor.
Okay.
And
Jim
he used
Ron?
to say, Jim Rohn,
Jim
and
Ron.
he used to say, the 5 people that you surround yourself with will dictate who you become. So he would always tell me, be selective of who you surround yourself with. Now, granted, many times I hear people say to me when they hear that, well, Fab, I can't choose my mom. I can't choose my dad. I can't choose
So
my brother,
true.
my sister, that drive me crazy. But I say, but you can set some ground rules. You can make sure that the time that you spend with them may be limited, or you can set some ground rules with them to say, mom, I don't want to hear anything negative while we talk, because I'm here to really care about you. Or like with my mom, one time I had to tell her, Mom, when I call you, I don't want to hear about everybody else's problems. I want to hear about how you're doing. I miss you. I love you, you know? But she spent like 40 minutes talking about everybody's problems that she knows. And I'm like, that's not going to help me, right?
No,
That's not going to
right.
bring me joy. But
Mm,
if I talk to her, then that's a different thing. So be selective of the people that you surround yourself with, but also catch yourself with negative thinking. See, right
yes.
now, negative thinking has one of the leading causes of you being sick
Mm,
because negative thinking changes the chemistry of your body. I give you an example. Fear. Fear is something that has not happened, but in your mind, you have the expectation of a negative
right.
outcome. If this happens, I'm going to lose my job. If this happens, I'm going to lose my loved one. If this happens, I'm going to go to jail. If this happens, whatever the case may be.
Right. Tied
So
to a
what I
belief.
teach people, yeah, I say, well, whenever you have those thoughts, I want you to flip it and put a
Mm,
positive outcome. If this happens, this is going to happen. And only select the things that you know that is going to give you a positive outcome in your life. And that's how you make better choices.
right.
If you're already doing something like, it's so funny, my son recently said to me, Dad, I'm doing a detox and I have 50 days that I haven't had any alcohol. Now he's 25 years old. And he
Okay.
said, the biggest challenge has been that all of my friends drink so much that sometimes I've been saying no to go to parties and to go to
Mm,
different functions because I don't want to feel that pressure. Or he says, I'm doing something it looks like I'm drinking, but I'm actually drinking soda water with a lemon, or whatever.
right.
And what it dawned on me is the fact that many times we compromise our own values for the sake of being accepted. And that's never a good thing for your
True.
body.
No.
Anytime you have to compromise
Interesting.
the music you like or doing something that you don't feel comfortable with, right? Many times we do that. It could be something personally or it could be something in business
Right.
that you shouldn't do it, but you're going to do it, hoping that nobody catches you, you know? But the problem is that the detriment is not in somebody catching you, it's in you living with that conscious mindset that says, I
True.
did something I shouldn't have. And that's what we have to take responsibility again and be responsible for the choices that we made and understand that every choice will have an outcome, will have a consequence. And you want to try to find choices that give you the positive consequences in your life. And that way you never have to keep looking back and saying, oh my God, I hope that this doesn't happen and live in fear or worse, depression, where you're
Right.
expecting that the future is going to be worse than the present. Why not? If you look, having
Yeah.
a thought doesn't take any more energy, whether it's positive or negative. So I can easily have a negative thought that's going to cause me to not feel good, go into depression, isolation, anxiety, potentially suicide. Or I'm going to choose a thought that's going to expect tomorrow that I'm going to be in a much better position than today. That's
Absolutely.
in our thinking. Now,
Right.
if you add a behavior to that thought,
Mm,
right, and you say to yourself, now, in order to be better tomorrow than I am today, what is the one thing I can do different today that I didn't do yesterday to ensure that tomorrow will be better?
right.
Right?
Right.
It could be in your personal relationship, right? Let's say that you had a fight with your husband and
Mhm.
you ask yourself the same question, oh my God, I don't want to have a relationship where we're not connected, etc. And you can say to yourself, well, no, tomorrow we're going to be connected like we were when we first met. And you can say, what is one thing that I used to do when we were first dating that really meant a lot to him? Oh my
True.
God, he loved when we took walks together. We haven't walked in 3 years. And then maybe you can say, honey, I'm going to get home early today. What if we take a nice walk and go to the park or just in the neighborhood or whatever? Would that be okay? And imagine how he will feel that you're doing
You're giving me
something
some ideas, Dr.
that you
Fab.
used to do.
Yes, true.
Well, I want you to
Yeah,
recognize that this is how you change your mindset and your
absolutely.
lifestyle into something positive. You first begin to change it. Like Les
Just
Brown told
changing the
me at the beginning
perspective
of
too.
this year, he said, I said, Les, what are you working on? And he said to me, well, the one thing that I'm really trying to remind people is that you cannot show up the same person you were in 2024
Mhm.
in 2025 and expect different results. And
True.
I said, that's a great message. I can't be the same person I was in 2024 and expect that my new real resolutions are going to come true when I'm not willing to change my behavior or even change my mindset. But I've
Exactly.
learned that your mindset is the beginning. You have to change your mindset to think of something more positive, something better to eat. And then from there, it will activate a new
Hmm.
behavior,
Right.
something that is different than what you've done in the past. And the combination of those two is what creates what I call a transformation, a change in your body. And that's really the secret of being able to transform every
Right.
single day.
100%. It's interesting when you mentioned, your mindset and Make Things Happen podcast. We talk about all things make things happen. I have a sales background since I was, my mom will tell you since I was 3 years old. But
Wow.
this underneath the dining table. I memorized my parents' sales presentation. Anyway,
I love it.
so it's make things happen as if you're an entrepreneur or whoever you are listening in. But it's a full circle. I don't talk about just your business or your mindset and making the shift. It's a full circle of everything from our health. So I'm so proud and honored that you were able to join me today. And we're getting into some really big, juicy things. And one thing I will comment is that we live, and there's over 80% of our time we live in our unconscious, subconscious mind, right? And the minute that you try to do something, I know when I've tried to do something, break a pattern, break a bad habit, or just go back to the gym or whatever it is that people are doing this New Year's resolutions, why they don't last, is because your subconscious mind will say, hold on a second. I'm not comfortable. What are you doing? You're changing, this bad habit. And so I do believe, Dr. Fab, that awareness is so key. Is that as long as you know, and this is what I talk about, as long as you know that you might feel discouraged sometimes. You might have that little voice saying, what if they laugh at you? What if they reject you? What if I don't succeed? And you do it anyway. And so, right. So the mind shift, I always talk about your thoughts, right? The thoughts that you have is going to impact and usually comes from your belief system. You talked about that
Right.
before, that you have this belief that this is going to happen, and it changes how you feel, right? And I'm
Yeah.
out and I came up with, this metaphor of change the channel has been my thing, is that change the channel to a channel that makes you feel good. Like you mentioned, what if tomorrow is a better day? What if tomorrow we can do something different? That
Yeah.
creates the energy that I believe in that we are in a quantum field, and it's all about the vibrational energy that you're exuding by feeling a certain way. If I feel motivated, I'm going to be on top of the world, and I'm probably my behavior, the action that you take or not take. It's like a circle. I always do this circle. The actions that you take is going to give you the results. So let's pretend you made the action to eat better. You're going to feel better. You're going to look better.
Right.
And then your belief system gets fed because of your action that you made, AE, the results that you got, or vice versa. Like you said, you don't make the right mindset shift, or you're just thinking negative thoughts that impact your feeling. And then you see the results. See, I tried to do this thing, but did you believe when you did this thing that you were actually going to be successful doing it? Or did you say, well, for example, I'm a smoker. I don't want to quit because I've tried it before. I never was able to quit, but I'm going to try to quit now. But your belief is wrong. You're not saying, hey, I couldn't quit smoking before. I felt hard doing it, but now I'm going to do it. And maybe this is the time that I change. So it's so connected, Dr. Fab. And you've talked a lot about that. And I'm really big with your mindset and making that shift in perspective, and just persevering forward. And I know you had quite the upbringing. You mentioned, I should say, the experience. I did not know that part about you, and that you had a horrible tragedy at
Yeah.
such a young age, and even now. And you've worked and collaborated with so many so many leaders.
Yeah.
Can you share a time that maybe you felt transformed, or something that you felt connected with people you've collaborated with, and what was your biggest thing that you learned along the way?
Well, to me, I can tell you that there's been a lot of defining moments. And the one thing that I recognize is one time I was asked to give a talk. And actually, the organizer asked me and said, Fab, everybody knows you for this and that, but most people may not know some of the defining moments that you had in your life. Can you give us a presentation of what did you go through? What were the lessons that you learned, and how did you get out of that, right? So I took about 2 weeks to really ponder and what were some of my defining moments in life that made me who I am today. And Diana, what I learned is that over 90% of them were challenges, were difficulties, were painful traumas. And because the body cannot change in comfort. You have to get uncomfortable for you to want to change. And when you're comfortable, that's what happens to a lot of the businesses. As you know, I mentor over 200 CEOs. And one of the biggest challenges is that we get them to a point that they're making more money, more power than they've ever made in their lives. And then they coast. They don't want to do the things that got them there in the first place because they're comfortable. So the whole idea is to be comfortable in being uncomfortable every single day. That's the secret to life. Because life, just like health, is a journey. And in order for you to maximize the potential of that journey, you have to be uncomfortable to want to make a change every single day. Every day can be better than yesterday if you just consciously make an effort. And it could be one decision you make that day, one choice. That's all it requires. But the more choices that you make that create change for the better, the more addictive making good choices become in your life. And you were talking a little bit about the brain. Recently, about 20 years ago, we came up with a new science called neuroplasticity, where in the past, scientists were telling us that our brains stay the same. If you have a brain injury, there will never be a hope for you to get over it. That's why a lot of paralysis, right? Brain spinal cord injuries, there's no hope. You're going to end up in a wheelchair. Well, that's all changed over the last 20 years. Why? Because we realized that our brain, due to this new science called neuroplasticity, is always changing and adapting to our environments, internally and external environments. So that's why it's so important that we pay attention. Now, before neuroplasticity, we had another science that refuted the argument that 90% of our diseases come from genetic expressions of the body, meaning your mom had your grandma had breast cancer, your mom had breast cancer, so the chances of you getting breast cancer are very high. That is no longer the truth. So the new science emerged called epigenetics. Epigenetics says that genetics is only 10 to 15% of a predisposition that something will actually happen.
Interesting.
But if you want to change it, change the environment around the cell, because that's what determines whether the gene of breast cancer gets activated or it never does. And you can live a life never activating any of your past history. They teach us as doctors to take this whole history line so we can try to identify what conditions most likely you're going to develop. And there's some doctors that are even giving prescription to prevent something that hasn't even happened. Right? Why not teach me what are the right lifestyle behaviors that I need to adapt to so I can prevent from ever activating that gene in my body? This is called epigenetics. So between epigenetics and neuroplasticity, we have completely changed the way we deal with the body. So now, as we're tackling the chronic disease problem, 90% of the healthcare costs, we realize that we need to help people understand, number one, that they're the ones that actually have the choice to be healthy or not, period. 100%. Nobody can make you healthy unless you don't want to. Number two, that their environment, internally and externally, plays a big role into how healthy you can be tomorrow in comparison to how healthy you are today. So simply change one thought and one behavior every single day, make it better than you did yesterday, and you're going to be able to find out your true health potential.
I love that. It's, I always talk about fall in love with your journey, fall in love with the journey, right? Because the ups and downs, it's there for a reason. Even the challenges that come our way, I always say, like, challenges speak to us if we listen. When you don't listen,
they're teachers.
Teaching. Yeah. And to me, that is bigger than anything that money can buy. Right. I know you mentioned like the biggest things were all the pain that you went through, the pain that these CEOs that you mentored have gone through.
They were my biggest teachers, my biggest defining moments.
I love that. Right? And you mentioned to change the environment of your cells, more importantly than your genetics. What would you say is the top one or two things that you should do to change the environment of your cells with disease? Probably more than that, more than one or two things.
Well, I can tell you based upon the science. In about 1987, I started really studying something that we call love, unconditional love. Okay. And I realized that of all the things that we can actually do for ourselves is to learn to love ourselves more. unconditionally.
Yes.
That means forgiving yourself for past decisions that hurt you
Yes.
or that you hurt somebody, uh, being more patient with yourself, always constantly working on bettering yourself in every aspect of your life, uh, learning from others, always being a constant learner of others. Look at examples of
Yes.
others and see what you can learn. And this is why it's so critical. Because when you learn to finally love yourself, your
Mm.
self-worth goes so high.
Yes.
That's directly proportional to your net worth, right? We have studies that
Mm.
have shown the more you love yourself, the more money you make, because now you feel you're worthy of a better environment, of a better lifestyle. And then, more importantly than your net worth, is your self-worth impacting your net worth. But more importantly now is the impact that you have in other people. Because at the end of the day, our value comes from the contributions that we make to others. But you can't make a contribution unless you have it to give it, right? I
Right,
always tell
right,
people,
right.
look, I know that you don't want to save money because you just spend everything you make. But what about this? What about if you save money so you have the ability to help somebody out there one day that may need it? Maybe not you, but
Right.
somebody
For
else.
somebody else. Right.
That's a much higher calling, right? And there's a lot of people that do things for their children, for their pets. Like I had a friend the other day that said to me, Fab, we invested millions of dollars for this technology for humans. And we're realizing that our biggest market has become the pet market because people are willing to do for their pets what they're not willing to do for themselves. And I'm like, you're right. I've learned always that
That's so
people are
true.
willing to do things for their pets that they will never consider doing for themselves. So
That's true.
why
I've
is
heard that
that?
too.
Lack
Right.
of lack of love. If you don't love yourself enough, you're not going to attract the right relationships.
Right.
Look,
Right.
if you love yourself enough and somebody toxic comes into your life, or somebody that is demeaning, or somebody that does not respect you, or somebody that's actually potentially physically or even emotionally abusive, you are not going to have 1 cent of patience for somebody like that to come in your life when you love yourself. When your
100%.
self-worth is low, what happens? You all of a sudden attract those people and you keep them because it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. And I used to do so much mentoring for teenagers that were abused, right? And they would tell me, I said, why? Why would you put yourself into that position? He said, because I have no self-love. I don't care about myself. If that's what they want from me, I'm just going to give it to them. And I'm like,
Incredible.
when did this happen?
When
Why
was that
would you even
okay?
think like
Right,
that?
right, right, right.
Right? But that's where a lot of people, and I'm not saying just teenagers, I'm talking about adults today that I
Adults
see them doing things that are so destructive to the
to
self-esteem
themselves,
of the person, to
100%.
the body, right? The things that they will do to their bodies just so they can be liked by somebody. I'm like,
100%.
whoever made that rule? So that's why I boiled down that if there was one thing that I would teach people is to learn to love themselves more because that's the foundation for everything good and every good decision that you'll make because you'll realize that you're worth it.
And you
And
mentioned
that
when
is really
you,
the
I
message.
love that. When you mentioned that when you love yourself, there's even been studies that shown that even like everything around you, even, the success that you have
Improves. Yeah.
improves. And, I remember years ago when I was a young mom with my first marriage and being in an abusive relationship. And I broke that cycle because I wanted to give my kids something better. And even just fast forward, you mentioned like loving yourself in a way that you attract the things around you. And I remember being a single mom with 2 kids. And I remember meeting, as being single, I would, date or what have you and get to know people. And I knew that one day I was going to get remarried, but I was not in a position to get married. I was like the happiest single mother out there living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and selling real estate and doing my thing. And I remember, having a whole transformation in my late 20s at the time when I found the power of like how our mind works and even neuroplasticity you mentioned. And I started to kind of just see things differently. And I said, you know what? I raised the bar. I changed everything. And I started to really feel like I was able to love myself. And you mentioned loving yourself. Not that I didn't love myself, but I was always living for other people. And so when you live for others and you're always, I was in survival mode all the time growing up with my parents, just unstable environment, moving around 15 times before I turned 18. and always having
Wow.
to be in survival mode. And you mentioned being in survival mode as well before. And the things that we have and the experiences, we know that that built us to what we are today. And I remember attracting, obviously, my husband now, and raising the bar and changing everything. I would say no to people I used to say yes to. Everything started to change, and I felt like this shift that happened. And I'm like, I might piss some people off, but I have to take care of me, and me first. And I remember meeting my husband in Dallas at the time, and I remember telling him, I'll never move to Connecticut. Like, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'll never move. But be careful what you wish for. What you say you will never do. Never say never. And I fell in love with the Four Seasons. But long story short, and the reason I brought this up is because I remember telling him that I was like so happy, and telling myself that if I knew that one day I'd get remarried, but I'm like, if he is just like the added bonus to my already happy life,
Yeah.
and being able to feel complete. People say, oh, I feel complete with my, I feel whole with my other person. And I'm not knocking that saying, but for me, feel whole first with yourself, because it's you, yourself, and you, right? First and foremost. And I believe in God or the universe, whoever you believe
Yeah.
in. That's the love. And I always tell my children, like, for me, it's God first. And my kids always say, do you love us first or God first? They play with me all the time. And I'm like, I wouldn't have you if it wasn't for God, our higher self, whoever you believe in. And so
Yeah.
that I love that you said that about loving yourself fully and unconditionally, no matter what. And I remember having these talks like, oh, even people say, oh, I'm so dumb. I'm sorry, I forgot to send you that. I'm like, no, no, no. Rewrite that. What do you mean you're so dumb? You're not dumb, And so I love that you mentioned so many great things, and
Let
it makes
me
us,
let me say
yes,
something that you mentioned there
yes,
that I happen to think about. So, Wayne Dyer was one of my dear friends, and I was his doctor for
yes.
many years. And he taught me a lesson many years ago. I think I must have been 24 years old. And he said, in loving yourself, he said what shifted him is when he recognized that we are not human beings living a spiritual experience, but we're actually spiritual beings living a human experience.
Yes. I
So
love that.
how I interpreted that over the years,
Hmm.
the reason that I can be so loving is because I see the spirit in you. I don't see the imperfections of Diana right now. I see the
Hmm.
true perfection of Diana in every aspect. And that's the person I want to build a relationship with.
I love
Imagine
that.
if we did that with our children.
Yes.
Imagine instead of nagging at them every step of the way.
Mm.
Imagine we did that with our husbands and wives, boyfriend, girlfriend, lovers. Imagine what that could look like, right? But
Right.
imagine if you did that with your customers at work.
Yes.
Instead of complaining about the people that are feeding you, right?
Mm.
Imagine if you did that with your employees, right? Imagine if you did that with your community. Imagine if you did that everywhere you went. So I learned that when we see ourselves as spirit first, we
Mm.
have an abundance of love because we are connected with something much greater than ourselves, right? Perfection. So even though as a human being, Fab Mancini can be very imperfect, Fab Mancini, the spirit, is always going to be perfect because I'm created in the image. I am an
Yes.
extension, a reflection of something much bigger than me, right? So
100%.
that's what I tap into people when I'm dealing with chronic disease, when I'm dealing with terminal illness. I
Mm.
try to tap them into their spiritual source first, because
First.
unless they believe in that, they get
Mm.
stuck in the misery of the physical body and
True.
the inability to respond appropriately because of all the things that they've done over the years. That is going to be a hard way to get them healthy again. But if I can start them
I
seeing
love,
themselves as
love that.
spiritual, and you're already
Yes. Yes.
healthy, right? No matter what disease you have, you're
You're
already
already healthy.
healthy. Your disease is not you.
It's
That's the
not
other
you.
thing. One time I did a
Disassociating
rotation.
yourself. Right.
I did a rotation in the hospital, and I never forget this. It was a surgical rotation.
Okay.
And when you do a rotation in a hospital, you have a lead doctor that you have all these pre-med students that are around. And then we go from patient to patient during their rounds,
Okay.
right? So then the doctor will come in and he will take the chart and he will say, okay, students, without acknowledging the patient,
Mm.
most of the time, some of them did every so often. Here we have a patient that is going through lung cancer stage 3,
Mm.
and blah, 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 blah. And then he started talking about the lung cancer and, okay, what are some of the things that you would consider doing all in front of the patient, right? And that's what I realized. where we have failed in traditional medicine is that we have tried to treat everybody as conditions rather than people. And now a big thing in healthcare is personalized medicine, right? Where
Yeah.
we actually going to treat an individual, and even concierge medicine has become very popular. Well, people will pay extra just so they have somebody really paying attention to them and not treating them as a number or a condition out there every single day, right? So that's the thing that I believe will shift everything. We got to get back to the humanity in healthcare. And for
Yes.
me, one of my secrets is that I always saw my patients well before I even started taking care of them. I saw them already
Mm.
well. And what I was trying
I
to
love
do
that.
is remove what was keeping them from expressing themselves as well. And that's where their attitudes became an issue, their
Yes.
behaviors became an
Yes.
issue. I would say, Diana, when was the first time you noticed this symptom? What was going on in your life?
Mm.
And I have gotten so many people well because we get back to where the root cause
The
really
root
is.
cause, right?
And
That's
that's the
incredible.
secret to resolving the chronic diseases out there,
And
right?
that's the difference
Is
between your modern,
Yeah,
traditional, I
and
should say,
the
not modern.
natural holistic. Yeah, well, the traditional is what we've always known, and it was based on an economic system
Right,
based
right.
upon we'll fund you, you'll fund us, and that's still the case, just so you
That's
know.
still the case. 100%.
So, like, my mom is 83 years old in March, and I always tell my mom, no matter what your doctors say, let's get a second opinion, somebody holistic, She loves her chiropractor, she loves her acupuncture, she loves her massage therapy, she loves all these holistic things that she does. And, the reason that she's so vivacious and so uplifting is because she recognized that she's not following what the majority of the people her age are,
Sure.
which, as you know, people over 60 years old are taking at least 3 prescriptions.
Yes,
At least 3.
at
When you
least.
go older, you're taking 4, 5,
More.
7, 10
It does
prescriptions
more
just to make
harm.
it through the day. Imagine living a life where there is no prescription, but only good lifestyle choices.
I love that.
And that's what gives you your ability to live your potential. Like, I already wrote my 100-year birthday speech.
I love that. Dr.
I
Fab,
already know
yes.
what I'm going to be saying because
That's
I want to reverse the
amazing.
clock. I'm about to do some testing that is going to tell me not my biological age, but it's going to tell me not my chronological age, but my biological age. I've already been told that I'm 27 biologically, but this is a very
Oh my gosh, I need to
sophisticated
do that
exam that they're
test.
making. Yeah, because
It's
I
amazing.
know my body has reversed in every way. And we
It's
have a new
awesome.
science called regenerative medicine that is
Regenerative
really
medicine.
breaking all the ways that we used to think of the body cannot regenerate this and
Right,
cannot
right.
regenerate that. The body can
They
regenerate it
can.
under the right circumstances. And that's what
Interesting.
we're discovering right now more than anything.
That is so amazing. Is there any disease that somebody might be hearing this, maybe it's their mother or their sister, that the doctor said there's no cure, not that they're necessarily, on a deathbed, but some sort of disease that you can only maintain it with a drug. Do you believe it can be reversed? It sounds like the answer is yes.
Yes. And the reason I say that is because you have books like Spontaneous Healing. You have many research papers that
Right.
have shown that different conditions have responded positively to
Mm.
different things. So, my thing is this: when you're being told a diagnosis,
Hmm.
remember it's an
Right.
opinion that is a professional opinion based on where that individual went, what kind of practice he has or specialty, what school they went to, and also their own philosophies about health and well-being. Now, if that opinion does not resonate with you, then let's find a different provider that may have a different opinion based on their professional opinion, based on their credible education, based on their years of experience, right? And
Hmm.
that's all I ask people. I said, look, it doesn't matter what condition you tell me. If somebody says to you, you're going to have to learn to live with this drug for the rest of your life, you got the wrong doctor. I even told
Exactly.
that to my mom because one of her doctors told her that in front of me. And I said, Mom, let me tell you what I've learned in the last 38 years. And she was so grateful to me because she realized that it's just an opinion.
That's just
Maybe
an
somebody
opinion.
else will have a different opinion. Gladys, Maybe you have blood pressure is not coming from a lack of medicine in your body, but maybe it's coming from some of the things you're doing that may be causing your blood sugar to fluctuate to adapt to that environment. Why don't we change that? What are some of the things that we can do? So this is what I'm
Going
trying
to
to
the root
teach
cause.
people more than anything.
I love
And
that so
if for
much.
some reason you
Yeah.
don't find any other option, you're always going to have that traditional opinion
Traditional opinion,
always there.
traditional medicine there. So Dr.
Right.
Fab, I love that.
Well, I have patients that have been diagnosed with cancer. And
Yes.
right now we're getting some of the providers out there in functional medicine getting some good results treating cancer through a metabolic approach. And there's books written on this and all this. And I say to myself, okay, if I was diagnosed tomorrow with something, right? Would I choose a traditional method of going to an oncologist, getting the recommendation of chemo or radiation because that's all we have, right? That's all we have. Or
supposedly,
would I go to somebody that says, maybe molecular hydrogen treatments can be very effective. Maybe some IVs could be very effective. Maybe getting into a hyperbaric chamber can be very effective. Maybe we can get into the red light bed for an hour a day, could be very effective. I'm going to try everything I can to try to do it holistically before I consider something that I know is going to harm my body in some way. So, but everybody has that choice. I always tell people, look, Bernie Siegel was one of the top oncologists in the world in the 80s and 90s, and he taught me that the three things that he saw in patients that put their cancer in remission were three things that I never forgot. One, how much do they believe in the person delivering that treatment? Two, how much do they believe in the treatment itself, regardless of whether it was conservative or traditional or non-traditional? Right. And number three, and he said, Fab, this is the most important one. How much do you believe that your body can actually heal the cancer? You gotta believe. You gotta go with that belief. So I said to Bernie, you mean to tell me that with all the science and all the research that have been done all the years, you are looking at the belief of your patient as a requirement or as a predetermining factor, whether they're going to get well or not? And he said, absolutely. And I'm usually right.
That's amazing.
So that created an impression on me. I was in my early 20s.
Wow,
and I'm like,
really?
Well, if that works for cancer,
what else
works
could it work
for everything in life.
100%.
And that's when I started implementing some of those practices in my own practice.
That's so, gosh,
and
that's amazing.
Began to help a lot of people.
So Dr. Fab, that's what I was going to ask you something, but you kind of hit the nail on the coffin there about your mindset and how vital it is when it comes to fighting diseases of any kind, My father, who was not the most positive person, he had his, my father passed away actually, but he had cancer like literally 6-7 times. He had stage 3 lung cancer. He had skin cancer. He's had lymph nodes, Hodgkin's. Anyway, so he had all these cancers, and that didn't take my father's life. And let me tell you one thing about my father that I take with me all the time and stays with me is A, his faith in God, and B, his tenacity. I mean, he would drive doctors insane. He would go to like 5 doctors. I want 5 opinions. I don't like this doctor. He didn't smile at me. So he was a pain in the butt, but it was amazing to see, his ability to just keep fighting through that insane and being persistent in your pursuit for no, I want another answer, not taking the answers that he was given. And then at the time in San Diego is where I grew up. He had a friend of him, which was his boss for this company in LA. And he paid for my father to go to Guadalajara for this natural healing. I don't know if you know Dr. Silvino. But anyways, he's a famous actor over by Tijuana and stuff. And so anyway, they did all this naturista is what they would do. And just feeding my dad
natural treatments.
Yeah, exactly. And just having grapes and all these other things. He would walk on the grass naked and hose them down. So all this holistic approach, right? He did get over cancers all these different times, but you just mentioned the mindset, and I think he was determined. I would always ask my father, Papi, what was it? What was it that kept you going? This was when he was good. Because, he wasn't sitting there, mindset, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better. He just had his faith, and he just was determined that God had his back. And I said, what was that thing? And he did say, he says, Mija, you know what? It was like this. It was as if I just got a blow when the doctors would tell me I had cancer. I would get back up and say, okay, let's go, soldados, let's go, soldiers, let's go fight this battle. Let's go, because we're gonna, so that plays a huge role, is your mindset, and not taking a no for an answer. Not that you're
Right.
delusional, but being
Right.
able to have that. And you said, know that you're already better, that your body has
Right.
the what it needs to heal. Even my children, when they had my 10-year-old just had the flu 2.5 weeks ago, right before
Yeah.
we left to Arizona. And I do guided meditation on my children. I've been doing this for years, even my two older ones. And I did guided meditation on them, and I would put them in the trance, in a state of relaxation. And I would start talking to them like, look, you're on the beach. Oh, the sand is hot. Hurry up, get in the water. So, I mean, I would go so deep, Dr. Fab, and I would remind them and tell them that your body knows just what to do as you sleep tonight. Your body's going to do all the things that your body needs to nourish your body and all this stuff. And I would do like this big balloon. Imagine it's a fluorescent green. It drops on your head, and I'm popping it. I would do that, and it would make a sound. So I'm all crazy with that kind of stuff because I truly believe in that. And,
Yeah.
even just having some personal stories of the doctors telling me certain things along my journey. And I said, I would try so hard to fight my anemia, for example, if I can share it for just, a
Yeah.
minute, quick minute with my anemia, Dr. Fab, and anybody might be dealing with this. I remember I went to a carnivore diet. I was obsessed. I took all the iron. I did like a pound of spinach and all these kale and smoothies with kale and spinach and you name it. And my hemoglobin wasn't going up. And my doctor's like, you're anemic, you need endoscopy, you need all these things. Maybe there's something happening. Of course, they're feared. I didn't know any better back then. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. I wasn't worried. I was like, okay. There was nothing wrong with my gut, like nothing was bleeding. I was fine,
Yeah.
but they couldn't figure out why I was so anemic. And I couldn't either, but I'm like, I feel fine. Like, I don't feel like I'm not okay. And they're like, well, that's weird. You should feel fatigue. You should feel all these things. And I'm really active. And I do all these smoothies in the morning. I do ginger, lemon, and fresh orange in my juicer. And that's what I have on an empty stomach. I did the water room temperature with lemon. I do that too. So that's good that you mentioned
Yeah.
that. Either way. And I tried to take the wheel. I took the wheel, and I was determined to cure my anemia. But I didn't have, I do see a naturopathic doctor. My kids have a homeopathic doctor, and a DO is my primary
Yeah.
care. So I'm all about that. But it was like a puzzle. Like, what are we doing? I saw a hematologist. Anyways, and I remember taking the wheel and just being so stubborn. Even my husband was like, what are we having for dinner? Eggs and steak. That's our dinner. Like a carnivore diet. I'm determined. And I did. We did this carnivore diet, driving myself crazy. Finally, they said that my bone marrow wasn't producing all the good blood cells that it needed to. The majority of my red blood cells were fine. It was just a small portion that were producing not the good cells, and doing this medication. And I was like, huh? And I went, all hands on deck, Dr. Fab. I believe in like blitzing the heck out of this. Let's double down, triple down. Went to New York, saw a specialist, went to Yale. Best doctors money can buy. Went to see them. And one of them said to me, well, you need this medication, and you're probably likely never going to get to normal levels. Because I asked her, what happens when I get to my normal levels?
Right.
What's going to happen? Can I just stop the medication? And she says, likely not. And she says, you're never going to get to normal levels, true verbatim. And I said to her, I left there with my husband on my way back from a 2-hour drive. And I'm like, how dare she tell me that? And then I said, she's not God. She can't tell me that.
Yeah.
And so long story short, and it's funny because this is really aligned with what you're saying. Anybody that might be listening now that feels that maybe doctors told you that it can't be turned around, or it can't, I'm telling you that I'm living proof. And I do believe that what happened with me, Dr. Fab, and anybody listening, I'm sharing a personal story. I was not expecting to share this, but I'm just going to say it. I remember feeling emotionally just distraught over this, but more so just tired, because I was being that positive person. I was like, I'm going to do this, not saying, like, just not letting that get to my inner dialogue. And I finally said, and it was a voice that said, you're putting so much energy on trying yourself to control your outcome. And I finally let go of the wheel, and I said, gosh, I'm getting emotional. And God said, I got you. And I said to myself, God has me. And I remember my follow-up, I talked to my doctor. I said, doctor at Yale, do you believe in God? And he said, yes. And he said, yes, I do. And I said, okay, well, you said that you don't know this and that. I said, but God knows. And he thinks I'm crazy till this day. And it's amazing because when I saw him, I said, God knows, and God's already healing me. And I'm telling you, Dr. Fab, it was a lesson. Like you mentioned, the biggest, lessons that we learn is through struggle, through the things that hurt us, the things that just sting us the most. And I remember saying, I'm already healed. And I would fall asleep literally with this affirmation, telling myself that my bone marrow is healing. My bone marrow is healed, and feeling genuine gratitude that one day I'm going to share this story. And I remember the follow-up 3 months later, and I'm no longer anemic. And I told my husband, I told the doctor, I'm going to send a letter to this doctor in New York, with all due respect. Here's a copy of my results that you said I'd never get to normal levels. And here's the thing, Dr. Fab, I feel bad for the patients that are not strong-minded, that maybe are struggling, don't feel as maybe are a little weak and don't feel mentally strong. Like I'm lucky, I'm blessed. Like I went in there like I'm gonna fight this thing, and I didn't take what they told me as value. And so, gosh, sorry to sidetrack here, but that's huge because I did it, and the journey continues. But you mentioned that and how you have to decide before anybody else, more before the doctors, before anyone tells you anything.
And the more you learn about the human body, the more you learn that your body has already a mechanism to heal. It has cells, organs, systems. We have 12 systems in the body that are really organized to keep us healthy. But we also have to make it easy for the body to help us. So we have to pay attention to the things that are inhibiting that health potential. But no, you surmised it all. 100%. I mean, this is really something that people need to understand. And that's why I frame it as it's an opinion. Don't take it personal. Right. It's an opinion. Yeah, you pay for it, but it's an opinion. Go find a different opinion, or maybe go and read the studies, or go and read some, listen to some podcasts with those titles, or spontaneous healing, or, how do you heal diabetes, or whatever. You're going to find that there's a lot of information out there and people that will share with you what they did. Not everybody's going to write a best-selling book. Not everybody's going to be in a podcast. Right. But even in conversations in your own circle, ask people, hey, do you know anybody that has been through something like this? I'd love to pick their brain. That's what I do. Anytime I hear somebody heal something that everybody said he can never heal, I want to go interview that person and say, hey, Mary, can you tell me what happened? Tell me, how did you get that? Like today, I interviewed a man that was 400 pounds when he was 21 years old. And I'm writing my new book is coming out next month, but I was writing on obesity last night. And I said, oh my God, I need to interview you in my podcast. And he lost, within 90 days, over 100 pounds. And then now, which is about 10 years later, he's at his ideal weight. And he looked like he'd been working out all his life. But when he showed me the picture when he was 400 pounds at 21, I couldn't believe it was him. Wow. So I said to him this, I said, Nathan, the reason I want to interview you is because there's a lot of people out there that are weighing 300, 400 pounds that never would think that it's possible for them to look like they want to look like. You've done it. That is more valuable than me giving all the science out there on how that's possible. Because you've done it. 100%. You've lived it. Right. So that's the reason why it's important to be able to showcase. Like when I wrote Chicken Soup for the Chiropractic Soul, Jack Canfield called me and said, Fab, there's so many miracles in chiropractic. I had no idea chiropractic has helped infertile women that can't have babies with infertility, or people that had asthma, or people that had blindness, or people that had, all these issues. Right. And I said, the beautiful thing about this book is that it's not a chiropractor telling you what chiropractic can do for you. It's actually our patients sharing their successes in a very organized way through their stories.
So organic, so candid.
Because patients have nothing to gain, right? They just want to share. They're not selling anything. They're just sharing information. And many of them will bring me their blood work, This is when they told me that I would never have babies. Here's a letter. And here is what happened after 3 months of chiropractic care. I mean, this is the kind of things that I've been, for the last 38 years, exposed to.
Amazing.
And the reason why, when people say to me, you have to learn to live with this, or you're gonna, this condition will never go away, or expect it to get worse. I'm
Mm,
like, why? Why would I ever give anyone the ability or the right to influence my own
right.
thinking,
I
right?
love that.
It's an
Yes.
opinion. And if
It's
you're
just an
not comfortable with
opinion.
that opinion, find another one. Now, if you're comfortable with that opinion, remember it's a choice. But maybe 6 months from now, you're tired of that choice. You can change it. You can change it the next day. You can change it the next minute. That's the
Mhm.
beautiful thing about our choices. We can change it at any time that we need to. But thank you so
I
much for
love that
having
so
me.
much.
This has
Thank
been
you.
very
This has been,
special.
thank you. I've
I hope
really
that we gave you
enjoyed.
enough value for your
No, you
audience.
did. You gave me a lot of value. So really quick, I know that this is the last one you wrote, and you're writing another one, which I can't wait to see that one. The
Yeah.
Power of Self-Healing, or even the other book you wrote, I'm sorry, the chicken, hold on a second.
Soup for the chiropractic
Yes, the
soul. And
chicken soup for the chiropractic soul. Where could people find you as well? You also talk about
well,
a
I'd
course that
make
you
it
have.
better that, if you go to my website, drfabmancini.com,
Okay.
I put in a pop-up that I created a resource of all the things that are working right now to keep people living their optimum life, their true health potential. And the reason is because I'm constantly doing media. And people will ask me, what resources? And I don't want to charge people for resources. I just said I put them all together and people can get them. And then let that be one option. And the other one is you can contact me directly through my website if you have any questions or anything,
Awesome.
you
Yes.
know. Uh,
I love it.
I'd
I
be
love
more than
that.
happy to help you. And if I can help you, I'll definitely point you in a direction of somebody that may be able to help you.
Thank you, Dr. Fab. So listeners could just take one step away today to start their journey of self-healing. You talked about so many things. Obviously, I can tell anybody the power of self-healing. This has the answers to a lot of questions that I personally had myself. I
Yeah.
read your book. It's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
what book you have coming out next month. But what would you say for listeners now that might feel like, oh my gosh, I took a lot of notes. There's really good information here. He talked a lot about, your diet and your environment, toxicity, and all the things that we need to do. Definitely the mindset. What would you say if somebody said, this is foreign to me, but I'm willing to try it? What's the step today that they can do to start their journey to self-healing? Where should they start?
I would say the first thing is to take a moment to take a deep breath in and out and see if it resonates with them that there may be a possibility that they can get better.
Okay, awesome.
Because I believe in the inner wisdom of the body. And everybody has to be guided. It's our GPS system. Even when we make the bad choices, it leads us into a better choice to get to the destination we want.
Yes.
So I believe we should always start by seeing if this resonates with you. If you want to learn more, then get some of the resources I'm giving you. I'm giving you audio talks that I speak 2 hours on this subject. We're giving you all kinds of things. I have surveys that you can take that will help you
Yes.
identify where are you weak in your area and
Oh,
give
I
you
love that.
suggestions of how to improve it. I mean, there's so many things
You have
that,
surveys
like
on your
today,
website?
yeah, if you go and get the resource, it's a document that I
Perfect.
created and I keep adding
I
to it.
didn't see
It's a
that.
living
Okay.
document
Yes.
because there's so many resources I have.
Yes.
So for instance, right now, this morning I was talking to a lady that has not really been successful with the GLP-1 injections, and it's become the number one drug in the world. There's some concern about potential side effect. Well, I discovered that there was a GLP-1 caramel and gummy that you can actually take
Wow.
without injecting anything in your body. And it has tremendous results. So this is the only one in the world that was created. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I bought it and I tried it. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I
Wow.
contacted the person that owns it, that created it. And he's
Okay.
like, well, if anybody wants to try it, we'll give them a big percentage off. And this in that document
Very
because
cool.
it just happened this morning
Okay.
that another person was telling me about this one topic that is right now a very interesting topic out there that people are really trying to find out. what are my options in losing weight? I don't
Mm,
want to do the injections. I don't feel
mm,
comfortable, or I don't
right,
have the money to
right,
spend $1,000 a month.
right.
Whatever the reason may be, right? I respect. So I'm always looking for a natural substitute, something
Yes.
that's holistic, natural, less side effect, that can do same or even better results. And
Just
that's
what's
what I'm
needed.
always looking for. It doesn't matter what's out there. I'm gonna try to find the natural solution. So, anyways,
That's
but
wonderful.
yeah, come
I
get
love
the
that.
resources. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through my website. And this has been great, and I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
the time and the
much.
opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Fab. It's been really an honor. So thank you so much for your time today. And I can't wait to see your book next month. That is all on this episode of Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano. I hope you found Dr. Fab so insightful as much as I did. Put your comments below. We'd love to see what you're now going to add to your daily habits or something that you're going to start doing differently. Maybe you have a health journey you've been dealing with. What is something that you maybe learned on today's episode that you're going to do differently? And make sure to subscribe